Okay, so I just came back from Captain America Brave New World, and here's my spoiler-free review. If you haven't seen any of the trailers or anything, it still might not be a good idea to check out this review. Go check out the trailers or go watch the movie and come back. But if you have, there's not going to be any deep spoilers here, just my general take on everything. So let's get into it.
Here I am.
Let's start with the big one, the visuals. If you've seen the trailers, you kind of know what to expect here. We got Captain America, aka Falcon. Of course, you've seen Red Hulk. He's all over the posters and everything. We got all this type of stuff. You expect high-flying action between Falcon, Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, and the movie does deliver. I think the visuals are pretty good. All the things that we wanted in the air, the aerial battles, everything, it looks good. It's not too jarring or too hard to follow. And overall, I think they did a really great job. Of course, they had a lot of practice. They do flying characters all the time in Marvel. They did a Falcon in the Winter Soldier show, which also has some good aerial battles. So I think here they really drove it home and gave us what we expected. As far as the Red Hulk goes, it's kind of a bittersweet situation. And that's because they did great, in my opinion. I think this was a great portrayal of a Hulk. Uh, Red Hulk, any Hulk, actually, they did really freaking good. And I say it's bittersweet because we got such this great display. Everything looked great for the most part. But it really makes you wish they do a solo Hulk film. It's like, man, why can't we just get that Marvel Disney solo Hulk film with all the polish? If they could do this, it's kind of like a pilot to say, man, we could really crush a Hulk film. I know they got all these things going on with the rights or whatever the case may be, but I feel like the Hulk never really got done justice in the MCU, and it kind of hurts to see that. It can be done, and I want to see it. Now let's talk acting. To be honest, the cast really nailed it. You're going to hear me reference The Winter Soldier multiple times just because I love that film. And this is probably the most comparable film I could say to that. But as far as the acting goes, yeah, man, what do you really want from the man, Gus? Giancarlo Esposito, he killed it in this film. He always demands respect and commands the screen, and there's nothing different here. See him in a film like this really just brightened my day. It brightened the film. It gave it a lot of that intensity that you know he brings, and I really have nothing bad to say about his acting. Carl Lumley as Isaiah Bradley, he really brings it in this film. There's a lot of heart. There's a lot of emotion in his performance. Another one I'm not disappointed on it at all. I loved him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and here he brings that up and takes it up to a notch ready for Hollywood. And I would love to see him on camera doing all sorts of things and all sorts of films everywhere because, man, this guy's really got it. Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross proves that these superhero films don't have to be devoid of great acting. Man, he did so good. He completely came across when I was just every scene he was in, I was like, wow, this guy is just something else. I don't know if there could have been a better choice. Rest in peace to the actor that originally played Thunderbolt Ross. You know, he did his thing for what it was. It was a great display, but man, Harrison Ford took this character and elevated him to a next level that in a way that only I think he could have did. And it was great. And I want to hear people argue that these movies don't have great acting or real actors or great actors now because, man, it's been a while. We had a good couple of actors in these Marvel films, and this is just putting the icing on the cake. Shout out to Harrison Ford for this one. We also had, I believe her name is Shara Haas, I believe. She was great supporting. She brought a little something different to the table. You know, this film didn't follow a lot of the tropes you think is going to follow or whatever. Not to spoil anything, but her character fitted well. Fitted well. And then, of course, we have Anthony Mackie and Danny Ramirez. Their cohesiveness and chemistry really just rounded everything out and brought the film to life. I really was going into this film thinking, how are they going to fit him in? There's another Falcon. We got a Falcon. He's another Falcon. What is he going to bring to the table? How is this really going to work? I'm not really that familiar with him in the comic books, but man, they did good. Good energy, good display. I would love to see them do so much. So much. Those two characters are great. Anthony Mackie really stepped up his game here. I remember him from Winter Soldier, and I was thinking, all right, he's Falcon, but really how far is this guy going to go with this? And he did good. In all the other films, he did good. It was Anthony Mackie, you know, but now I really feel he elevated things and showed that he can demand his respect and star in a role and really take it far and be that leading guy. I didn't know if he had it in him to be that leading guy. Seen him in Twisted Meadow, he did really good, but this is like big time. And I say, hey, Anthony Mackie could be that leading guy now.
Watch yourself.
The story. To be honest, I didn't really know what to expect here. I know the movie went through some name changes, some rewrites, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I kind of didn't expect much story-wise, or thought it was just gonna maybe turn into one of those convoluted messes that happens when you do things with these big budget movies and they go through all these rewrites and reshoots. I feel like they were shooting this film almost up until it came out, basically. But it turned out pretty well. Once again, I have to compare it to Winter Soldier, which had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1 and season 2 to kind of bring it in and bring it out, and had the whole Hydra espionage thing going on, which I love. This is one of my favorite films. Once again, this kept that tone in the story. Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of played, but not too much into it. But this film had a story, a real story that you could follow, that anyone could just walk in and pay attention to. And I think they would get it. It borrowed and touched on some things of the greater MCU, but it didn't rely on it. It wasn't a crutch. You didn't need to see all of these movies for all of these years to understand this film or like it. It kind of stood on its own. It was grounded with a little bit of comic and fantasy elements into it, just enough where I think an average viewer could watch and enjoy it and not be confused. But someone who's a fan of Marvel, it's stuff there for you too. So overall, I think the story was done really well. The tone was just perfect. We didn't get this slapstick comedy stuff that Marvel seems to overdo sometimes with their movies. We kind of got a serious version that didn't insult the intelligence of the audience and say, hey, you can handle a comic book film that's smart. You can handle James Bond with some fantasy elements, and I really respected that and think they did really well. They gave us a really good story arc with Sam Wilson. We kind of seen his progression through the film, as we've been seeing his progression through all these films, but it was more focused here. We got to see who he really was as a character. A little bit less, of course, than Falcon and Winter Soldier, but just in a grander scheme. And then Thunderbolt Ross's story arc, which they did handle delicately. I think they was able to run those two stories parallel without getting too convoluted and too confusing. And we got two really good story arcs with progressions from two really good characters that all came to a head. Even with all the rewrites or whatever was happening behind the scenes, they pulled it off.
Come and get me!
The music in the film, it never wowed me, didn't disappoint me, but I didn't feel that, this is that, or there wasn't a special soundtrack like Star Wars or anything where it's just going to stick in your head and you're just going to remember those intense moments. It was just a basic soundtrack with some basic songs here and there. Nothing to get up in arms about, nothing to complain about, just mediocre. All in all, Brave New World is a solid spy espionage comic book film with a few twists and turns, just enough to keep you going. Has some decent pacing, never gets too boring, not too much talking, but it doesn't overload you with action, and definitely just doesn't make you feel brain dead with slapstick jokes just coming from everywhere. I just despise it when these type of movies just make everyone so silly. Like, there's serious things going on here. We need someone to just be serious. And this film gave you that. It wasn't overloaded with that crap. It stayed grounded in what it was, so it does work as a standalone film, but it can lead some things and Easter eggs there that help the greater MCU Marvel universe. So I'm going to give this film a 7.5. That's what I'm going to say. It definitely has rewatchability. I would definitely watch it again for the story and for the action, but it's not the best at any of those areas. So that's my spoiler-free review. There are some things I could dig deep into, which I could say, I really love this. And some things that are like, I don't know what was going on here. Trust me, it's not a perfect film by any means. But maybe I'll do that later or go on someone else's podcast or something and we'll discuss the film and I can give my opinions on the nitpicky things that I want to go over. But let me know what you think down in the comments and hope you enjoyed this video. It's been Just Dale with Value One Media.